The Sword of Damocles, a novel of God's Legion, by J.T. Dowdy. Chapter 2. All immortal beings have vices and addictions to stave off the madness of the longevity of their eternal lives. Take my brother Elohim, for example. When not giving one of his hideous sermons to the masses, he is usually found in his workshop, carving away at wood or hammering stone into submission. Though I do not understand why such activities bring him joy, he is without a doubt creation's premier sculpture artisan. The life he brings to inanimate objects has never, and will probably never again be duplicated by another. No doubt some of you in this lecture have picked up on the fact that some creators' hobbies are then mirrored in their chosen nation, and you would be correct. The perfect example of this would be my brother Odin's Aesir, since they all love to gamble to an unhealthy degree. I can think of far better uses for my money, but Odin's famous gambling halls on Asgard have been mirrored on every Aesir world, ship or orbiting installation. Then again, their culture is one of hyper-focused order and militarism. Just like in the kamikaze culture, there must be approved pressure-release systems, or their culture becomes wound so tight it explodes. Excerpt from a lecture on the madness of longevity, given by Creator Lucifer at the Royal Faudelin Institute of Arts on Mismar 4. 3 days after Creator Friar arrived and taken the 2 remaining swords from their asteroid, Damocles found himself in a too loud nightclub, playing cards at a table with Creator Friar and 2 very drunk women who were a bit too handsy for the angels' comfort. The Creator was enjoying the attention from the red-headed woman, but it took everything Damocles had to remain professional as the drunk brunette groped him. It was not that he had some deep-seated religious beliefs on the matter. He was a being of spirit after all, and such things did not bother him. It was just he no longer cared, because he had almost burned through his remaining spirit and would not care about most anything in the coming years. He had long ago come to terms with his eventual death from a lack of new spirit, since he was no longer associated with the host ascendancy. The club was located on an Aesir world known as Chamiel, and was called Mother, Maiden, and Wolf, because of course it was. Friar had assured Damocles this club serviced the more well-to-do freighter captains and mercenaries in this sector of Asia space. Chamiel was off trying to use her bubbly personality to find some older captain who, for a pile of cash, would be willing to part with his ship and spend the rest of his life in comfort. It had been over 2 hours since Chamiel had left to wander the club, and Damocles was considering sending the rescue party after her. He wanted to go himself, but since Creator Freya had paid for the entertainment, he was stuck where he was. The 2 angels Creator Freya had brought with him were named Hilda and Skuld. Both women made the host angel look like he needed to eat a more balanced breakfast, and both were currently dancing in a throng of milling and gyrating people on a dance floor, while flashing lights played over them. Hilda had made no bones about her disdain for the comparatively weak angels she was now saddled with, while Skuld gave off the appearance of an ignorant child with large doe eyes. That is, until she quickly snapped a man's arm in 3 places for becoming too handsy with her on the dance floor. Damocles saw the excitement the man's screams caused the angel, and the incident firmly placed her in the off-limits category, next to experimenting with Legion nanotech. Strobe lights flashed in time with pounding industrial music, which caused Damocles to yell to be heard across the table. "Are you really going to just buy a freighter from someone? You know I can't pay you back for that, right?" Lasers and lights played across the section of the booth Freya was leaning back on. He flashed a grin of 2 white teeth in the technicolored darkness. "Think of it as an investment," he yelled back. There may come a time where I could stand to hire the services of your company in the future. To me, that is a win-win for everyone involved." The host angel narrowed his eyes while slowly nodding his head. Despite his reservations on the idea, a consistent repeat client who did not ask for suicidal outcomes was something which made all mercenaries very happy. Though drunk and swaying side to side, the red-headed woman suddenly sat as upright as she could and said, "Time's up, boys, unless you want to pay for another round." Damocles mentally groaned as Creator Freya produced a 10,000 penny coin and handed it to the woman. The coin was snatched out of his hand with a look of lust, then followed by a confused frown as the redhead realized she was no longer the hulking being's center of attention. "Keep it," Freya said, watching Chamiel and some ancient-looking wisp of a man weaving through the crowd of people to their table. He turned his gaze back to the redhead and gestured for her to leave. "Looks like the fun is over for tonight. Business, you understand. Keep your schedule clear for the night. I might be looking for more company." "You will have to pay again, just like everyone else," the redhead replied, grabbing her partner. "Come on, Erica." As the brunette was dragged off into the crowd, she blew Damocles a kiss, which suggested merry wickedness in his future were the two to ever meet again. Then again, she was roaring drunk, and her flirty nature could have just been the alcohol talking. Creator Freya waved to his angels, who, despite the noise and commotion of the dance floor, picked up on his motions and moved towards one of the back rooms. The Creator beckoned the host angels and the ancient freighter captain to follow him. At the back of the club were more secluded private rooms, where business could be conducted without being disturbed. Several large Jotun men were guarding the back rooms. They were wearing the customary white dress uniform of the army, and Damocles did not know if a duty such as this was part of the military service in this nation, or if they were advertising their credentials. The security guards let the group pass with a brief nod of respect to a creator of their nation, and the group passed into a sound-dampened section of the club where the music could still be felt, but it did not ring the ears. A soundproof door was closed, and Damocles noticed his ears were ringing and buzzing as if he had just stepped off of a battlefield. "Are these rooms really private?" he asked Freya. The Creator looked offended, then to the slightly hunchbacked mortal captain as he got down to business. He asked, "Has Chamiel here explained to you that we wish to purchase your ship, Master?" He let the last word hang, since he did not know the mortal's name, and Master was the honorific title for a ship's captain in civilian circles. "Stennis," the captain replied, holding out his small hand to be engulfed by the much larger Creator. "Stennis McClargy, your worship. Though I am afraid the old girl is not for sale, as long as my old bones have life left in them. Renting her now that is an option I am willing to discuss. Well, if the price is right, of course." "Of course," Freya replied, smiling like a predator. "How much can your ship haul, Master Stennis?" "About 2.5 billion tons, your worship." Damocles grimaced as he stepped forward to put a stop to the negotiation, as there was no way he could pay the Creator back for such a venture, even with sweat equity. The Creator held out his hand to stop the angel. "2 million is a fair amount," Freya said, "but were it a matter of simply moving cargo, we would not be meeting in the back of the club." Captain Stennis nodded his head as he leaned on his stout cane, more out of habit than actual need. "That's obvious, your worship. One of your station could simply requisition whatever you needed from the Navy, so I figure you are wishing to move something more clandestine-like, without all of those troublesome customs questions. Yes?" "Correct," Freya agreed. "Are you opposed to such a venture?" The captain shrugged and said, "Not if the money is right. But, as of right now, I currently have a cargo hold half full of other people's bought and paid for things. I will be another month or two in the black hauling if you could wait that long." Freya leaned back on the past wall nearest him to close his eyes and think. He was quiet for several long moments before saying, "I do not think we can wait a month, Captain Stennis. What if I paid for your current cargo to be offloaded and shipped in your stead?" Stennis's eyes narrowed in suspicion. "That is mighty kind of you, your worship. Some might even say a bit too generous. Especially when I saw the Jarl-class battle wagon you probably stepped off of parked in orbit. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the idea, but it sounds like this little trip of yours is going to become interesting, and possibly more of a one-way kind of affair. Would you be willing to tell me where it is you want to go, and more importantly, what you will be doing with me and my crew if I accepted your generous employment?" Damocles stepped forward at a gesture from the Creator and said, "I have been hired to return a kidnapped mortal child from a Creator. As of right now, no one knows where the kid is being held." The freighter captain never flinched as he replied, "My price just tripled. Which Creator nicked the little lad from his cradle? Perhaps I may have heard of him." Again Damocles looked to Freya as if asking permission to speak. Freya spoke instead. "The Creator is a she. It's a Hura Mazda." Stennis leaned over to spit on the red-carpeted floor. "Vile bitch of a she-devil," he growled. "Her damnable war has cut off the quick and easy routes for us honest working people. Sticking it to her might bring me some peace before I die." Damocles and Freya exchanged a look of curiosity at this mortal. Most would find the prospect of crossing paths with her a bad decision, Damocles said. "Hell, I don't want to do it, and I am immortal." "Why would you?" Stennis laughed again. "Because, your worship, she has caused me no end of irritation and forced me to travel longer distances, which cost a fortune. Now, I'm a black man, by heart and trade, but even my old bones long for civilization every once in a while. And because your coin is guaranteed by the government, not to mention the opportunity for an old black like me to not have to worry about finding contracts for the foreseeable future. Say, your worship, would 9 million strain your purse much?" "Let's say we make 7, Freya replied, spitting on his hand and holding it out. "And you and your crew come work for me when we make it back." "All-Father bless your generosity," Captain Stennis replied, mirroring the gesture. "Me and my crew will get you wherever you need to go. Don't you worry about a thing." With the backing and orders of one of the Aesir creators, the local dock workers worked non-stop for 3 days to unload Captain Stennis's ship. Once the unloading was complete and the shipping for the freight paid for, Damocles stood on what seemed like a never-ending concrete slab used by the bulk freighters at the harbor as he stared up at one giant rust bucket with the barely visible name, Folat Hop. The translated name to Universal Standard was Forlorn Hope. "We're so going to die," Damocles groaned as he buried his face in his hands. Even the Creator, who could theoretically make his own universe, looked as if he was having second thoughts as the small, hunched-over figure of Captain McClargy came shuffling partway down a long loading ramp from the inside of his ship. Freya whispered, "The name does not inspire confidence. No. Plus our captain seems a desperate man, or an extraordinarily foolish one." "Welcome, my new friends," the captain shouted in the biting cold wind. "We are ready to kick off whenever you are, but, well, you see, I seem to be missing a few of my crew who ran off for some well-deserved entertainment after our last bit of asteroid dodging to get here. Fear not, though, your worships. All of my crew know to be back before the unloading is done, or they will be left behind, and their shares forfeited to the drinking fund. We can kick off as soon as we get your belongings on board." Freya nodded to his two angels and Damocles, and the party began to follow the old man back up the ramp to the inside of the massive freighter, only to stop as the whine of a ground car's motor grew louder. A large passenger transport with spaceport markings came to a skidding stop at the bottom of the ramp as doors were thrown open and drunken sailors bailed out to rush back up into their ship. The last two to get out were a brunette and red-headed woman, and the brunette was half dragging her stumbling companion. They both pushed past the crowd of immortal beings to stand before the captain. The brunette looked as if she was about to throw up. Then she straightened as best she could and said, "First Officer Spigen and Navigator Jones, requesting permission to come aboard." The burp which came from her lips threatened something chunky. "Captain?" Captain McClargy gave Creator Freya an apologetic smile as he took a quick step out of spewing range. "They came with the ship when I bought the old tub, and somehow they just keep staying on despite my best efforts to leave the two of them behind." He sighed and turned back to his first officer. "XO, drop our driver off in her shower with the water running, and then get cleaned up yourself. You smell like a toilet with a wee hint of vomit." The XO tried to salute, but only managed to smack herself in the face before she hauled the limp form in her arms deeper into the empty freighter. Despite what the future held in store for the two of them in the near future, Freya and Damocles looked to each other before bursting into laughter. "Oh, hell, Damocles," the Creator remarked. "Let's get this suicide mission of yours started before we both come to our senses and tell the Legion to go pound sand." "Wait, what?" the captain of the freighter said. His entire being became laser-focused like a career Navy man who had spent a lifetime on a warship, who was just informed someone was shooting at him. "You never said anything about those people." Freya shrugged. "Does that change anything, mortal? You are working for me, not them." Captain McClargy closed his eyes while clearly mumbling some obscure Asir prayer. He looked the Creator in the face without blinking and said, "I generally find dealing with those people to be more complicated than it is worth. But I took your money, and I am a man of my word." The captain called to several crew members to show the passengers to quarters before excusing himself from the prestigious company, because he had pre-flight duties and inspections to be about. Sometime later, Damocles had just finished drying off from a shower in the small cabin the captain had provided him when there came a respectful knock on his door. "Yes?" the angel called, as he quickly began to put on his old clothes after pulling them out of the cabin's fresher. They had the sterile ozone reek of the cleaning machine, but they were a far sight better than smelling like machine oil and desperation. A woman's voice came through the intercom speaker next to the door. She sounded groggy, yet alert, as if she had taken a heroic amount of stimulants. "Captain wants you on the bridge, sir. The others are waiting too." "One moment," the angel called out, and a few moments later, Damocles hit the activation stud on the bulkhead, and the door to his cabin hinged open with the hiss of pneumatic power. "Follow me," a brunette woman said, pushing off of the bulkhead where she leaned with her arms crossed. She stopped and turned around slowly, her eyes wide. "You?" Yeah. "Why are you here?" "Paid the captain for travel." The XO ran her hands over her face and groaned. "This is not happening," she murmured, then straightened and jammed a finger into the angel's chest, only to wave her hand in pain as the large man proved to be as immovable as a brick wall. "Look, how about we just forget the other day and start over? Deal? And don't think, because we were so friendly, You get any special treatment or someone to warm your bed. You are cargo on this ship, nothing more." "I can live with that," the angel replied, holding out his hand to the woman, since he was just as interested as her in starting on a better foot. It took a moment for the woman to process the name being spoken to her. Then, as fast as a striking snake, she withdrew her hand. "Wait a minute. Oh my God, you're serious." The woman looked the skinny angel up and down and almost burst out laughing. "You're telling me you're the one who turned the tide at the Battle of Saint-Germain?" The angel thought he saw where this was going and lowered his hand. "Yes, and the one forced to flee in disgrace from my home after losing to the Legion after Michael sent us off to die. That's me, the one and only." The XO turned around and began walking while muttering to herself something about killing someone. "Well, don't just stand there like an idiot, big man. Come on." Thankfully, the woman did not seem to care who the angel was in a previous life, though it was obvious she had read something about him at one point. Damocles spent the better part of 15 minutes following the woman up and down ladders and through seemingly random directions before coming to a heavy security door which stood open to the bridge. The captain was a cautious man, and had put his guests in quarters to where no ordinary mortal could hope to find the bridge without guidance. Unfortunately for him, the immortals had perfect recall, even if it took some time for the older memories. For a split second, the disgraced angel contemplated stealing this ship to restart his mercenary work. Yet, such actions were only a foolish thought, as such a vessel of this size required crews of at least several dozen. A flood of thousands of memories of his former life, as one of the many heroes of the host ascendancy, came to the front of his mind. Damocles dismissed them with a shake of his head, which brought him back to reality. He was no longer what he once was, and was on borrowed time. He knew he would die within the next few years, but he had a partner who was counting on him. The bridge of the Folat Hop was just as dilapidated as the rest of the ship, a sea of ancient technology, empty coffee cups, and broken, non-important equipment. Of her crew currently present on the bridge, he only recognized the faces of the navigator and executive officer. The angel was sure the woman's official title was first mate, since this was a civilian vessel, but the captain called her by a military title. The other mortals were seated at their consoles going about their work. "Good evening," the captain said grandiosely, gesturing for the angel to come in as the driver went to take her seat. "So good of you to make it, your worship. We were just discussing where it is you wanted us to take you." Damocles studied a sputtering holographic star chart of the current sector located in the exact center of the bridge, and shook his head. "I don't know," he said. "Our employer only told us what to find, not where to go. The last I heard, Ahura Mazda was located in the 7th dimension with Creator Ur. Have you heard anything different, Holiness?" Creator Freya looked at first to the aged captain, then to the two mortal women manning their stations. "How sturdy are they?" he asked. "The best," Stennis McLargy stated proudly. "Everyone here besides you immortal types served on the same ship way back in the day in another life. We all got tired of risking our lives for our commissioned pay in the Navy and decided to go into business for ourselves. They are all as reliable as the tough old tub you now find yourself sailing on." He slapped the holographic table, which caused it to flicker for a long, uncomfortable moment. He frowned and added, "We may have our moments of uncertainty, but we make it through all right. Since you are paying, just point us in the right direction, and we will see whatever your hearts fancy through." "Right," Freya said, drawing out the word. He repeated their goals as if that would help him work through the problem. We are trying to track down a missing child taken by Ahura Mazda, or one of her minions. I would agree with Damocles here that the boy is probably being held in the dimension she is normally found in, or one adjacent to it. There are a few of my siblings in the 7th who might help for the right price, but we are not on the best speaking terms. Regardless, we will be forced to go to a higher dimension. That carries problems for you mortals. I can help with some of the discomfort, but I am afraid I am not as good at that sort of thing as my father is. The mortal crew looked to their caption with clear uncertainty written on their faces as the old man closed his eyes to think. Damocles noticed the reactions of the XO, and the navigator were bored, as if the prospect of jumping not only universes but dimensions did not bother them in the slightest. Even the prospect of going up against an insane creator caused no more reaction than a decision about breakfast. Damocles looked to the face of Creator Friar, and noticed he was looking at the two women as well. Then the angel saw one of the fingers of the executive officer. It was tapping on her thigh, like she was waiting for an obvious decision. The captain thumped his cane on the deck and asked, "Spigen?" "The crew won't like it, Captain," the XO replied. "But if this trip will screw over the lady who has cost us money, I'd say they will go along with it." McClargy nodded. "Jones?" The ship's navigator and driver worked her console for a while before saying, "There is one of the host's universal gates, some 30 jumps from us, but we have to cross some pretty high traffic systems to get there. I make it almost 2 weeks before we could jump to where we wanted to go. Not to mention, the ridiculous cost of using one of those gates is profit prohibitive, not hauling cargo, unless our creator here is willing to foot the bill. I hear the Legion don't use the gates. Maybe we could ask one of them for a piggyback lift if we were feeling extra crazy and suicidal." Damocles' heart sank as he looked to Chamiel and wondered what both of their lives would be like as indentured servants to a creator. He felt it was morally wrong he did not inform the creator his investments would not last long enough to recoup the titanic amount of money which would be spent on this venture, but he did not care about a lot of things anymore. Freya had his eyes closed in thought, no doubt running the numbers in his head. He clearly did not like what he was coming up with, as he gestured to his angels and asked, "What do you two think?" The grey-eyed Hildair toyed with her axe hanging from a frog on her belt while tracing a fingertip down a scar on her nose, and remarked, "I think it will be fun to go there again." She did not elaborate for those who did not know. "Skuld?" Freya asked, mimicking the tone of the ship's master. The slow-looking angel shook her head and said, "No flicker-life mortal is worth so much time and money. But you are going to do it anyway, because you gave your word to the weak one." She shrugged her bulging shoulders under her fur cloak. "Not like we were doing anything fun, anyway." Damocles quickly looked away as angry eyes swiveled in his direction, which said in no uncertain terms he should go step into an airlock without an environmental suit. "All right then," the captain said, "barring any semblance of a working plan. Jones, lay in a course and get us there at best speed. The day the Forlat Hawp jumped through the host displacement gate into the system, where she would disappear from 3-dimensional space to reappear in another dimension." Damocles and Chamiel found themselves in the navigator's room with Freya's group and the captain for a meeting to decide their next course of action. Navigator Trixie Jones had painted her cabin all manner of girly colors, and instead of a bed, opted for sleeping on a mountain of stuffed animals. XO Mercy Spigen was on her 4th beer when the captain asked the question everyone had avoided for 2 weeks. "Your worship, why are you willing to spend such money on getting this ankle-biter back? Don't get me wrong here. I am not complaining about the coin you have paid us in advance. But I think we deserve to know the truth, since you will be putting this ship and all of our lives in danger." Not that the Creator required sleep, but he had been laying on the floor, resting his head on Skuld's lap with his eyes closed. "First, let me ask you a question, Captain. How did Chamiel find you in that club back when we first met?" "I was at the bar trying to get drunk. Why?" "My question is why you? Forgive me, Damocles, but your partner is damaged from something in her past. She does not function as an angel should. She should have stood by the door with a dopey look on her face as people walked right by her. I have seen angels in her state before. They always just stand there, unless given very specific orders. Most will not respond to external stimuli unless a creator tries to rebuild their mind. Even then, such a process is not always guaranteed to work." Anger welled up in Damocles as his partner sat away from the group, toying with one of the stuffed animals the way a mortal child would. "Be very careful with what you say next," the angel growled in a low tone as he readied himself for violence. "Peace, Damocles, and you know you would not stand a chance, even if you were whole." Freyr opened his eyes and sat up to the frustration of the angel he was using as a pillow. "Damocles, if you could not see what has been in front of you this whole time, then you really are an utter fool, and your maker is better off without you. You were put in a position to not refuse the Legion's offer and be their plausible deniability. Your partner, damaged as she is, just so happens to find an independent captain who will take on this suicidal, one-way mission to save a single mortal child, who then just happens to have a crew crazy enough to follow him without a single question into the seventh dimension, which, might I add, is the supposed heart of Ahura Mazda's and Ur's seat of power, who then just happens to keep going with the non-existent plan for what? Money?" He paused to shake his head, side to side. "If none of this is making sense to you, then you are just as damaged as Chamiel is, and you just refuse to admit it." The Creator paused to shake his head and make a noise which sounded like a chuckle. "Open your eyes and look at the Captain Angel. And I mean really get a good look at him. Not once has he ever looked away when talking to one of us. Do you know how rare that is among mortals? Plus, and I think this is the nail in the coffin on this one, he is drinking wine when everyone else is drinking beer. You do not have to be the All-Father to see it." To Damocles, the aged captain looked to be just another old mortal. Then the Creator's points started to slam home one by one. Then he remembered the navigator's strange reaction when he told her his name. He had thought it was just her reaction to a story about him. Now, it seemed to be something else entirely. And the Aesir Creator's final point: the Legion Master is rumored to prefer drinking wine over any other form of alcohol. "So then, older brother," Freyr muttered after he saw the light shine behind Damocles' eyes, "why is this mortal child so important to you that you come up with this convoluted scheme to get him back?" The captain of the ship began to clap his free hand against his leg as he said, "Well done, Freyr, though. I suspect you figured it out when we shook hands. I care because I gave my word to my son Chamiel that I would find his missing son and bring him home." The voice of the Legion Master's rich baritone said through the captain's lips, as the visage of the hunched mortal waver to be replaced with a vessel which stood taller than Damocles by a few feet. He wore the same outfit as seen in every video or picture of him: a faded purple colonial jacket and patched black shirt and pants over scuffed knee-high leather boots. His silver hair was pulled back in a ponytail, with a length of silk ribbon which had seen better days. Silver eyes so ancient, Damocles could not bear to look at them for more than a handful of seconds, looked first at Chamiel, then to Damocles. Your partner really needs to leave the room while I explain why I am doing this. I beg of you, send her away for a moment. Chamiel was happily making one of the stuffed animals walk in little circles while playing with its big floppy ears. No, Damocles said with more conviction than he had ever used since commanding his armies in the host. She is one of us, whether you like it or not. Deceiver. Damocles could not help his words. The conditioning of a lifetime spent in the host ascendancy came back once confronted with his supposed great enemy. She will bear witness to your false words. Boy, Freya snapped in a tone which only a fool would not pay attention to and heed. If even half of the stories my father have told me about him are true, you had best keep your teeth together. You have no clue who that really is. The Legion Master held out his hand to the much younger creator, and Freya stopped talking and bowed his head in genuine respect, an act both Hildir and Skuld had never seen their lord perform to anyone other than the All-Father Odin himself. They quickly followed suit, even though they did not know why. I warned you, Damocles. The being hiding behind the disgraced angel Lucifer's name said, Very well. My angel Chamiel was asked a long time ago to start a rebellion amongst my legion, as we had grown too stagnant and prosperous for our own good. We needed something to change us, to make us wake up. So Chamiel did not hesitate to do what was asked of him, though he asked a price of equal value to his appointed task. The ancient being, broke off to look toward Chamiel with a grimace before staring directly into Damocles' eyes. He asked for what he had always wanted, to father children and have a family as the mortals do. Cut the crap, the host angel replied automatically. We beings of spirit are biologically sterile. Our bodies are for interacting with the material universe, nothing more. Yes, as is mine. But who made you that body in the first place? Who designed yours to behave as it does? Rules can be broken if you understand how something was done in the first place. His Holiness made my vessel. And who made his body originally? Who made the original template that most all creators copied when making their angelic children? My father is the great maker. He needed no help. Wrong, Creator Freya interjected. Elohim has lied to you. Rage built in the angel as he argued. And just how would you know? Because my father saw this three-dimensional universe being built, and he told me who did the building. Who did or did not is irrelevant to my original question to the angel, brother, the Legion Master said, bringing the conversation back from the emotionally fueled direction it was heading. My question still stands, Damocles. For the sake of argument, suspend what you have been taught and just use logic. Say that Elohim was copied in a way from an original blueprint, and say that when he made his children, he simply copied himself, a copy of a copy and all that. While not the most in-depth explanation of how your kind came to be, you will have to agree that you are not a creator, right? Right. Damocles' reply was hesitant, as he was not sure where this evil being was going with his questions. I cheated and gave my son the price he asked for because he earned it. Chamiel wanted to change his lot in life, his purpose. If he could change his, then what is your purpose in life? Would you be where you are today if you had been offered or given another choice? If you were allowed to have made decisions for yourself? That question, asked in the way it was, rang the angel's soul like a gong. He knew his purpose, to be an extension of his Maker's will, to be a soldier protecting the mortals of the host ascendancy, to lead armies in glorious battle. He was old enough to have asked himself this many times, and each time he came up with the same answer, because it was ingrained in the very fibre of his making. He was content in life to be as he was, because there was fulfillment in a job well done. Chamiel, however, was not content to be a soldier. Her words brought her partner's wandering mind back to reality as she said, "You mean I could be something else?" Damocles looked in horror as his partner stared at her trembling hands. "I wouldn't have to fight any more, Dam. I could just make pretty things to sell, and you could make me a house and tend a farm or run a business like we see on the Hollow." "Chum," Damocles said quietly, knowing in his soul now why he was asked to send her away. The old adage still stands today as it always has. Once an angelic mind loses its conviction, it becomes damaged. This is what broke her sanity in the first place. "Don't be silly, chum. We are soldiers. We lead armies of the faithful into battle." "Silly!" Chamiel shrieked, her voice rising to unpleasant octaves as her eyes became wild. "We live in squalor compared to what we used to have. And who said I wanted to be a soldier anyway? I was never asked. Were you asked, or was it just assumed we would be okay as a well-off slave?" She grabbed her ample breasts and thrust them at her partner like weapons as she made her point. "I was made a woman, and I cannot carry or make a child as the universe says I am supposed to. I was made in their image without the ability to be one." Damocles looked back to see Hildir and Skuld covering their ears and chanting in a language he did not understand, to drown out the hysterical host angel's words, so they themselves would not even contemplate such ideas, lest they be caught up by Chamiel's storm of emotions and consider her thoughts. "Sleep," the Legion Master said, as he flowed effortlessly out of his chair to touch Chamiel on the head with his hand, and then assisted her to the deck so she would not be hurt. He looked to Damocles and scowled as he said, "I warned you. But you could not have known what would happen. Now, we must act quickly, or she will be damaged even further as her mind is taken up with all of the what-ifs." The soldier in Damocles understood the time for action and the time for question. "What do I do? I have disconnected her soul from her vessel, and the longer she stays without her senses, the worse the mental strain will be, until she eventually goes even more insane than she already is. You must choose between the merciful death now, as she will never be the same person you knew. Or I can wipe her memories of you, and she can live the life of a new Legion angel. Or the third option is to erase all memory of the conversation which broke her conviction, and all of us must promise to never mention it again. If she found out and knew you didn't tell her, it might damage her to a point where I do not think I could put her back together again." The revulsion welling up in the host angel at the thought of his partner for millions of years being indoctrinated in heretic ideology was almost too much for him to stand. He started to tell the evil one where he could stick his lies. Then he looked to the face of the woman who had been by his side for so long and knew he could not just order her death. He hung his head as tears flowed freely. He said, "Holiness, forgive me. If you can save her life, do it. Of course I will. But you did not choose what you wish me to do. She is your partner, and therefore it is you who has the responsibility to choose for her while she is incapacitated." Damocles was staring at his partner, and so never saw the Legion Master smile when he said the words, "God forgive me," with conviction. "Erase her memories, and we will forget this ever happened." The ancient being, hiding behind the name Lucifer, nodded his head and looked to Friar and said, "Give me a moment and we will be back." He then placed his hand on Chamiel, and the pair winked out of existence as they were folded into the webway between universes to some destination only the Legion Master knew. The room was silent for over an hour as everyone gave Damocles time to process what had just happened. Unfortunately for him, the angel was unable to calm the storm in his mind, and the hunger of his soul was becoming overpowering. He shook his head and stood up to leave the room. He needed to be somewhere, anywhere else but here for a while. Counting the seemingly infinite pipe couplings running along the overhead would allow him to force his mind to other matters. Leaving the too-cute room, the angel began wandering the dilapidated ship to be alone with his thoughts, and the damnable question of what would you choose to be if you could be whatever you wished. Hours or perhaps days later, Damocles found himself seated on what appeared to be a weapons crate in one of the many vast cargo holds of the ship, looking at his boots. Numb. His partner had not returned. Not that she had been the most stimulating of conversationalists since their defeat at the hands of a single Legion century who had been experts at guerrilla warfare, but she had always been there. He thought he had known despair before, but the darkness he was hurtling towards was merciless. "How long has it been since you had any food, Damocles?" the voice of the supposedly mortal Captain McClargy asked. Damocles had not heard him approach. "I had some of the dessert cake the cook made." The frail old man drug one of the ammunition cases, weighing at least 1,000 pounds over to sit by the morose angel. He sat down with a grunt and sighed. "I meant the other food, the kind which is necessary for your particular survival." Damocles shook his head and shrugged. All non-Legion angels required mortals to open their minds through the mantras of prayer in order to siphon a minuscule portion of their souls for sustenance. Existing as a being of spirit burned through what mortals considered a soul faster than anything, and an angel was always hungry. "Chamiel is fine, by the way," the captain continued. "She is playing with the stuffed animals of Miss Jones, and she has no memory of being there before, or of the conversation we had." "What else did you do to her?" "I did nothing to her, if by that you meant to imply that I would." Damocles was spiraling in his depression and lashed out. "Wouldn't you deceive her? You could have had your way with her. You could have poisoned her mind against the true faith. You could have." He broke off, stopping himself from saying more to offend a being who could easily kill him. The voice and attire of the Legion Master had returned. "Damocles, look at me, please." The angel did, and he was unable to look away from the burning silver eyes which held him captive. "Son, I am not my children. I do not take advantage of people in need. Never have, never will. Contrary to what you have been told your whole life, I find such actions the very definition of evil. I did not molest Chamiel either physically or mentally. All I did was erase her memories of the conversation. She is still broken, because only fully erasing her mind, like I said, would fix her. If I could fix her without doing that, I would have. You have my word on that." Damocles was able to blink, finally, and look away. He felt in his soul the words were true. "I'm sorry. I should not have been insulting you after you helped her when you did not have to." The Legion Master snorted. "I'm used to it by now, thanks to the agreement Elohim and I reached long ago. But what of you, young angel? You are on your last legs, and yet we go up against creators at their peak. How will you earn the money I am to pay you?" This time it was the host angel's turn to laugh. I accepted the contract. To be honest, I do not see a way I will survive this. I have been thinking this would be a final ride in a blaze of glory kind of trip. The Legion Master snorted. "If only there was a way to fix that, since you are about as useful right now as a left-handed hammer. Let's get you fed." To his credit, Damocles did try to move away from the hand coming towards him. He failed. Fire and pain lanced through the angel's very existence as the withered husk of his soul received its first bit of nourishment in over a couple 100 years. Like all angels, his soul was greedy. He subconsciously latched on to the source of nourishment and sucked in as much as he could till he felt as if he would burst. With the liquid fire of the Legion Master's soul racing through him, Damocles' mind returned to what it used to be before the accident, while his physical vessel grew as if in response to more fuel. His clothing became taut against his vessel's skin, then ripped along the seams thanks to bulging new muscle the fabric could not contain. The Legion Master withdrew his hand, and the host angel instinctively reached for it, wanting more. His eyes were wild as the object of his one and only desire was taken from him, and he started towards the source, before shuddering and clutching the sides of his head. "No," he hissed, backing away from the ancient being, who calmly sat looking at the angel as if in judgment. Moans of agony escaped the newly remade angel as he fought to force his desires away. He was muttering to himself, "I won't be like them. I won't be like them. I refuse to become an addict again." The angel collapsed on both knees to squeeze his eyes shut and clutch at his stomach like a child with stomach pains. It took Damocles what felt like hours to regain control of himself while repeating the same mantras which reminded him of who he wished to be. And finally, he stopped shaking. Of all the angels in the known universes, the angels of Creator Elohim were the most addicted to the souls of mortals. The archangels kept them that way to ensure obedience in the ranks. When he regained his faculties, the angel found himself propped up against one of the weapons crates while seated on the floor. He was garbed in new clothing, which fit perfectly, and the others were likewise seated around him. He moved to slowly stand up, then figured the deck plating was just as comfortable as a steel box. "He is lucid again," Creator Freya said, looking at Damocles' vessel approvingly. "He looks just like the last time I met him on Asgard, fit and healthy." Though he did not require mortal food or drink, Damocles licked his dry lips and was surprised to be handed a goblet filled with a sweet-smelling white wine. He took the offered cup gently, so as to not crush it with strength he had not been used to in a long time. "Damn, boy, you were one thirsty bugger," Captain McClargy said, taking his hand back quickly from the offered cup. "Did you know you had less than 3 standard years before your lack of spirit would no longer drive your vessel?" Damocles took a drink of the wine and nodded his head. "Your partner was in even worse shape, idiot." "I know," the angel said softly. "I had been giving her my soul to sustain her after we left the host. What few mortals we had around us would have offered us nothing of value, so we never bothered asking them to pray." Hildir and Skuld were sitting on either side of their creator, watching the newly minted host angel with fascination. It almost appeared as if his admission of self-sacrifice earned him some begrudging respect from the pair. Freya looked on in fascination as he glanced at the Legion Master and said, "He is sort of like a sponge, isn't he? Our angels do not have such wild swings in difference when it comes to taking in spirit." "I doubt they would," Stennis McClargy said. "Your religious system has a more individualistic take on faith, and the Asire have more than one creator. Host religion being what it is, fosters a more fanatical perspective." Damocles' automatic reaction was to argue, but what he just went through left little doubt as to the validity of the Creator's words. He rose to his feet and stretched his refurbished muscles. "Thank you for restoring me," he said, nodding to the Creator, posing as the ship's captain. He turned to look at his partner, who was also in new clothes, and fit again after being summoned to help her partner if he needed it. "Feels good, doesn't it?" he asked her. Chamiel had always been the more physically impressive of the pair. She flexed her arm and chest muscles like a bodybuilder to show off a toothy grin. "Just like old times, Dam, you know, minus all of the company around us." A thought which had been bugging the host angel and needed to be asked. How are we going to remain sane in the 7th dimension? I have only ever been to the 4th, and the experience was unpleasant, to say the least. Creator Freya looked at the captain with an amused look on his face. "Do we spoil the surprise for him, or let him figure it out on his own?" The Legion Master grinned. "Oh, let him figure it out for himself, of course.